Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Free TV. It is Tuesday, August 5th, 2025, and I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel. Sorry I was away for a week, had to do big stuff, and now I'm back. Thanks for supporting as we move along, and I'll just jump in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So I'm so glad to be back with you here on UR Free TV. I always start in the beginning of the month by saying thank you to the people who support the channel with a giveaway of C60 Evo of my sponsor. And of course, that is the C60 Evo capsules, which are amazing. You get 180 capsules, and I give away one bottle to two different people who support the channel every month. And this month it is Julie and Nancy. I want to say thank you so much to both of you for supporting the channel for quite a while now. I'm so appreciative, and those are being sent to you as soon as we get your addresses, and they'll just be heading out immediately. So I'm so thankful, and check out at the end of the video, we might be able to do a nice deal for people looking into C60 and wanting to check it out. C60evo.com/YAFTV, all of the codes below in the description. So it's been quite a week that has just knocked it out of the park with news. And everybody's overwhelmed. Everybody's kind of freaking out, like, oh my God, what do we do? Like, it's everything. And people are, there's so much noise out there that is like, oh, it's awful, instead of it's good, it's good. I'm on the it's really good team because I see it all as incredible progress. And it's like, this is kind of a waterfront video, but it's like, as you're looking at the waterfront, it's a giant swamp, right? It's a giant swamp. And it's got the crocs, and it's got the snakes, and it's got the toads, and it has the muskrats, the rats in there. It's just a giant swamp of everything being spotlighted. And so people are like feeling frustrated. They're feeling as if, like, it's not enough what's happening when massive things are happening. Okay. And I'm going to jump into a whole bunch of that right now. And I just, I'll put on the glasses and we'll get going, because I'm so glad to be back with you here after my week respite. And, what we're dealing with right now is the DOJ going after hugely the people in the swamp to do with everything from Epstein to Crossfire Hurricane to the massive coup. It's beyond. It's beyond. If you've watched my videos for a while, you kind of see where I'm describing, the Epstein stuff in itself. It's so beyond this one term of Trump, or his last term, or the Biden term in between. The Epstein stuff is monumental. It's been going on since Robert Maxwell, who preceded Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell just getting transferred to a comfy Club Fed prison, even more comfy than where she was before, and still fighting the grand jury testimony being released to do with her prosecution, that she's some victim. It's ridiculous. As they're going now after multiple Epstein people, that's coming out of James Comer in the Oversight Committee, now subpoenaing like a dozen of deep state operatives, right up to Bill Barr. And it's very interesting that Bill Barr is the first one, who's going to be, I believe, is it the 8th or the 18th? We're going to be seeing Bill Barr subpoenaed to testify before the House Oversight Committee, who was the last one to see Epstein alive in the prison there in Manhattan. And so we're gonna jump into all of it, but I believe Bill Barr is the first one. Let's see. Yeah, Bill Barr on the 18th. Okay, so that's 2 weeks from now or less. We're going to see Bill Barr to come in front of the House Oversight Committee, chaired by James Comer, who keeps delivering. I mean, he can't prosecute, but he keeps bringing people in. And so let's talk about who Comer has now subpoenaed. Okay, this isn't, can you come in and talk? These are subpoenas, and it's to come in and to testify before the House Oversight Committee. This is under oath, and Bill Barr being the first. And Bill Barr, as we all know, his father was Donald Barr. He was the head of the Dalton School that employed Epstein first, who was a college dropout and went to work at the Dalton School, where Donald Barr was the director of the school. Donald Barr had a woman, a girl living with him who I believe was a scholarship Dalton girl. Okay. This is the pedophile, at least the pedophile, uh, you know, in belief only, if you want to think that his book about intergalactic pedophilia was, just a book, okay, where aliens were, what was it called again? Gosh, I don't have it in front of me today. I usually have it with me all the time. But, Donald Barr, Bill Barr's father, who was OSS and CIA, who ran the Dalton School, where multiple elite New York City people bring their kids to go to school, and was the first to employ Jeffrey Epstein. He wrote, what was it called? Intergalactic Relations or Space Relations. I think it was called Space Relations. This book about intergalactic pedophilia, where aliens came to Earth to steal the children and groom the Earthlings to become pedophiles. Okay, this is who we're dealing with. So that's an aside, but it's an important aside. As Bill Barr, the last one to see Jeffrey Epstein alive, is now being subpoenaed to come and testify in what is the Epstein investigation. And people are freaking out saying, oh, there's not enough happening. How much more could you have happen? Okay, we know everybody wants arrests. We all want arrests immediately. Absolutely. And the investigations of Crossfire Hurricane and the Russia collusion coup are ongoing as well, with the strike teams, with everything. The FBI is going into every kind of all kinds of circles doing this, but people like, we need the arrest now, but it is happening, and this is all while Trump, when you see the swamp, it's like, is he crossing the Delaware? Is it like the Marbleheaders getting him across the swamp, right? Um, to try to do this, or is it like he's like a drone flying over it? Basically what we have here is that you're seeing this situation where this battle with Israel, which is, massive, talking about the massive swamp creatures, with Thune and Mike Johnson. Thune putting the Senate on pro forma, refusing to recess, and Trump could stop that, and I hope he does. He could have J.D. Vance show up at one of these pro forma Senate meetups and basically declare, under Trump's command to do so, J.D. Vance, as the pro tem of the Senate, could go in and say, we are declaring the Senate in session, and actually, and through Trump, declare that the Senate is going to recess. And I hope that he does, because we have 150 appointments not being made because the Senate, it refuses to recess, just like McConnell. Okay, just like, as we have, I think is it Nate Morris there in Kentucky, trying to take the seat of the Senate of Mitch McConnell against the other Thune-like McConnellites there in Kentucky. But basically, we need to take the Senate, to get these confirmations done, and the fact that Thune would not put it in recess when we have 150 appointees that we need immediately, especially because they're judiciary and they are, of course, U.S. states attorneys, everything we need to fight the lawfare that's going on. And then, of course, Mike Johnson, which we're going to jump into here in a second. But basically, all to say that in these massive subpoenas that are coming down, I guess I'll just finish covering that, out of the House Oversight Committee, to do with Epstein specifically, and it breaking that there is also the connection between Epstein as an FBI informant, the connection of him being connected way back to Bob Mueller, This gets into Joe Biden. You know, the last hurrah of Epstein before he was arrested. But it gets into, Bob Mueller there in Boston, heading the FBI field office there, and everything he had to do with Whitey Bulger, the mob boss who was in charge of killing off everybody they wanted to kill off out of the FBI for entertainment purposes only in Boston. All of this interconnected now with Epstein is what they're putting out here. This connection with Bob Mueller, early connections with James Comey, all of this coming out is great news. It shouldn't be downplayed at all. This is great news, even though we've been covering it. All of us who have been following this forever. This is like 6 years, 7 years, 8 years on. Uh, the whole 9 yards on. But for people who are just finding out about it, it's very important. And yes, it does take some time. And so in the House Oversight, James Comer, he is subpoenaing everybody. Okay. This gets into both Epstein and Crossfire Hurricane. And see, they're putting them in together. And that is the kind of waiting game because they're interconnected and they have everything to do with each other. And eventually it's going to reach to what's going on with Israel, the Middle East wars, how they're trying to bring it here to the US, all of the money there. Netanyahu now annexing Gaza, saying we're taking it. Mike Johnson coming out and saying we're going to basically outlaw in the federal government the use of the term West Bank, okay, in the federal government. And I'll just cover this real quick and then I'll get back to the subpoenas. But Mike Johnson is coming out and saying that after his little trip to Israel over the weekend, where he just was like, I love the West Bank. No, excuse me, I love the Wailing Wall. I just love Israel so much. Um, Basically, Netanyahu's government is failing. Okay, the people themselves of Israel are hating on him hugely. They know they have a target on their back. That this endless pursuit of war is causing a huge, just catastrophic situation for Israelis. They're fleeing. Okay, they're fleeing to Europe. They're fleeing to the U.S. And in Israel, all of the people that are taking over the areas that have been occupied by Christians are they're burning down the churches, they're burning down the homes of the Christians. And we have Mike Huckabee even coming out and saying, hey, could you kind of stop killing the Christians? We're trying to make money on our that thing I always talk about, the help the Jews, whatever it is, ads that they always put on Real America's Voice and other Fox News and everywhere, where they're like, what is it, the coalition of Christians and Jews or whatever, like give $40 so we can help this 95-year-old Holocaust survivor survive. Mike Huckabee, makes money on that, he's coming out and saying, hey, you're actually not giving visas to Christians to come and to Israel. You're refusing their visas. You're killing the Christians in Israel. What's going on? Well, Mike Johnson basically comes out and says, we're going to ban the use of the term West Bank in the federal government. We're going to make sure that people only refer to it as Judea and Samaria. Okay, they're going full Old Testament on us. Judea and Samaria is only what they will be able to use as terms. They're doing full censorship, ban on words in the government of political areas, the West Bank, okay, where there are the oldest Christians living, and of course the Palestinians in the area. Because what did Miriam Adelson say? She said, well, I'm going to give you this $250 million to this Trump campaign, but you have to allow the annexation of the Golan Heights. And of course, it ended there. But this Gaza, now we're going to take Gaza. We're going to fully annex Gaza, is what Netanyahu is saying as he continues to try to stay in power so he can avoid jail. And so this is very, very, intense with Mike Johnson. Okay. And what do they have on him? I don't know, but I'm sure none of us watching would allow him alone around our kids. I'm just saying. But, is this a dual citizenship deal? It's like, I think there's at least 36 Congress and Senate members who have Israeli US citizenship. They have dual citizenship. That's in our Congress. That should not be allowed. I don't think anyone with dual citizenship should be allowed, not only in Congress, in the Senate, but especially in those places. I don't care if it's Brennan with his, he has dual citizenship in Ireland. I don't care who it is or what country. If you are on any government official position, you shouldn't have dual citizenship. That should just be the way it is. I don't care if it's town council, school board, whatever it is. No dual citizenship people should be allowed to be in those positions. But yeah, so that's what's going on with Mike Johnson. And we have Ghislaine Maxwell transferred to the federal fancy prison. Now, obviously, she didn't get the deal she wanted after Todd Blanche went and tried to extract information out of her, the deputy AG. But she, she's trying to stop the release of the grand jury testimony, as we just have yesterday, of course, the grand jury being formed in what looks like southern Florida to do with, of course, the treason investigation with the Crossfire hurricane coup attempt on taking over the United States government and duly elected government. So back to House oversight here for a moment before I go forward. James Comer, he has subpoenaed Loretta Lynch. Okay, huge. Bill Barr is going to be first on the 18th. He has subpoenaed Alberto Gonzalez, AG, HRC, Hillary Clinton, okay, being subpoenaed, Bill Clinton, Eric Holder, AG under Barack Obama, Bob Mueller, okay, Jeff Sessions, AG, he's coming in pretty close after Bill Barr. Jeff Sessions, Trump's first AG, on 8/28, okay, August 28th is Jeff Sessions coming in, James Comey, Merrick Garland. And it kind of progresses up into October, where the subpoenas are coming in for them to testify. And I believe this is a flip up scenario, that they are bringing in Bill Barr first and building the information and the cases on top of this. This was done after, of course, the interviews with Ghislaine Maxwell, okay, the handler of Jeffrey Epstein and the daughter of Robert Maxwell, the triple spy, KGB, Mossad, and MI6, who created, of course, the first scenario of his favorite thing, which is, of course, space relations, both science, medicine, and pedophilia. Okay, he controlled all of the science journals out of the UK and built his he didn't build it, but all of the Mossad money, the MI6 money, all of the stolen money going in to fund the control of science around the world to build towards this biowarfare program post World War II. And then Epstein took up that track as just being the front guy for, handled with Ghislaine Maxwell through Mossad, MI6, and of course the CIA. And so this is all building, and it's important to not dismiss it and say, oh, nothing's happening. Yes, this doesn't, we all who have been following this forever, I kind of can't stand when people are just like, oh, Trump sucks suddenly because, nobody's arrested, et cetera, and money's going to Israel and money's going to Ukraine. Mark Levin, oh, more money to Ukraine. And no, we want the money to stop, just like MTG has come out so clearly and said the American people don't want to fund Ukraine. They don't want to fund the Israel-Middle East war. She had a great interview with Tucker Carlson, and she's just, absolutely straight up right. And the basically simple principles that we all know, and bringing the Middle East wars to the United States, okay? Bringing the Muslims and the Jewish war here into the United States. That is why 9/11 was orchestrated and why they created this whole thing, to bring it here to act as a Cloward and Piven, to act as a disruption and as a way to infiltrate and insert massive amounts of these players on both sides. Very often, just the way it is and true is this often comes out of very, very rich Jewish people, like, you know, it was George Soros, now it's Alexander Soros. And when we see with New York, as they still have the ongoing fights of the Muslims and Jews in New York, they're, you know, basically I've been wanting since I wasn't able to get up until now, the situation of when I reported, I think last time in my last video, that Mamdani was going to Ghana to celebrate his nuptials. You know, they happened back in February or something with his wife, and they were going to Ghana, even though supposedly he left there when he was 7, and he is now being inserted as the mayor of New York, fighting so hard to get him in there. And it's all Alexander Soros, who's now in charge of the Soros Foundation, Open Societies Foundation, but also just the money. Alexander has taken over. He's married to Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton's bestie, you know, maybe her controller for all we know, but, you know, gets into the Anthony Weiner laptop, the Hillary Clinton emails, all of it, all of this breaking, the annex, okay, from Durham coming out. This is all huge, and I hope they get Julian Assange in to testify on all of it, because there is still lawfare going on, lawsuits to get the Seth Rich documents out. There's so much happening. It's like overwhelming, and people get frustrated because they're like, we want perp walks, we want massive arrests, but the amount of the lawsuits and the DOJ action is massive, and the FBI action, and people keep acting like, you know, somebody, you know, screwed up, and it's like, no, do you see the massive amounts of lawsuits that are happening? Do you see the massive amounts of subpoenas and going after these people? This is not business as usual, people. This is not bury it into the swamp. This really is the bring it out in the open, as Trump is fighting and fighting to save the economy. Trump came out today, and I'm going to get back to Alexander Soros, but Trump came out today and said, you know, I'm actually looking here at a dividend for the American people, because we have had such incredible, up to $20 trillion now in investments. He said, my main point here, and he said this in his presser today, as he was doing, I believe, creating the council for the 2028 Olympics or 2026, I don't know, I can't remember. But the Olympics, the next Olympics, they're coming soon. He basically said, I'm creating this council for the Olympics, going to be in LA and the Palisades, and, you know, Mel Gibson's blowing the whistle on all the people that are stealing all the money, giving it all to NGOs instead of actual people, denying the permits, the same old stuff, okay, that we know with the just, you know, it's been for 2,000 years. They just burn you out and they steal your land. And now they just do it in the open. And thank goodness we have Mel Gibson fighting it. But Trump basically, you know, he created this new Olympics Council. Of course, Monica Crowley in charge of that as the ambassador there for the 2025 kickoff events, and all of the other being the ambassador to the United States events, basically, during her term. But what he said during this presser is that he's considering doing a dividend return to Americans, so that there's $20 trillion coming in investments alone. Plus, there is this massive tariffs and all of the money coming through tariffs. It started out with, like, now I think it's up to about 200 billion, but it's hugely gathering and gathering. And he's saying his main focus was to pay down debt. It was to pay down debt on the $37 trillion in debt. And then he said, you know, on top of that, I'm considering giving a dividend back to Americans because of all of the hell that we've gone through with the destruction of the economy under the globalists, under Biden, under the planned destruction of the economy. So that's very, very interesting. And you know, we're in this fight as we're looking at, maybe, you know, we saw the governor, can't remember her name right in front of me. Let's see if I can find it. who resigned, the governor on the board of governors of the Fed. She resigned, and now they're going to put in Adriana Kugler resigned from the Fed Board of Governors, and they might put in, I believe, Judith Sweeney. She wrote this in great book, Good as Gold, all about backing the dollar with gold. She's an amazing economist, so Judith Sweeney might go in and take that position. And Trump has said he's not going to have, he's not considering Bessent to replace Jerome Powell as the head of the Fed. And so this means Hassett or Kevin Hassett or the other Kevin, Kevin. Oh, I can't remember his name right now. He seems even better to me. He's really intent on taking the Fed down to being controlled by the Bank of International Settlements and the European Fed. So that's very exciting. We're going to keep watching there. But okay, more to say as we go. But I want to get back to Alexander Soros and what he is doing, because we've been watching in Texas, of course, as they are trying to redistrict. And Texas has been fully attacked. Talk about taking the Middle East wars to the United States. Texas has been hugely, massively attacked. And what we have in Texas is we get Alexander Soros paying for the break in quorum, as we had Hakeem Jeffries go to Texas and basically get all of the Democrats in the Texas Congress to flee, not all of them, but a lot of them, okay, to leave while they're in session and to refuse to do the redistricting of Texas. That would give 5 more seats to the Republicans, which is what they're due with the real trajectory of the voters of Texas, as came out in the last election and what shows the actual real constituency of Texas. And so what happened is they broke quorum and they left. And we always know, we saw it in Oregon a couple of years ago where Republicans did this and they threatened to arrest them and strip them of their, they did, I believe, strip them of their chairmanships or other seniority in their Congress positions. Well, you know, a little too late, you had, you know, the House Speaker there in Texas, a total rhino, let them leave. Okay, they fled on a plane, and I believe it was paid for by Alexander Soros, a $100,000 flight to go to Illinois, where all of these Texas Democrats ran to with Hakeem Jeffries and others to Pritzker's, Illinois, and discuss how they're going to prevent the redistricting by breaking quorum and breaking the law, basically. And so you had Abbott come out a few days too late and say, "Oh, we're going to arrest them." No arrests, okay? No, nothing going on here. You know, it's all just a show, and you know, we're not, convinced by that. The person who's been doing the heavy lifting, and Alexander Soros, of course, you know, is what we're hearing paid for that flight. He has been funding Mamdani right down there. I think I didn't finish that. Mamdani was in Ghana. Okay, Alexander Soros was in Ghana at the same time, and what he did there is he met with Mamdani. He's been funding Mamdani through Open Society Foundations, groups that are, you know, offshoots of Open Society Foundations, and he has been paying Mamdani's his attempt to get there and control New York City. And he also met with the Ghana president, and I do believe he said something about sending Ghanans to Serbia for some kind of color revolution activity, and all of this happening in Ghana. Okay, and Soros funding even more radical lawfare prosecutors in the U.S. than his father. That Alexander is actually even doing lawsuits against George Soros's prosecutors he put into office across the USA who weren't radical enough. Okay. And so that's what's going on with Alex Soros, married to Huma Aberdeen. And so there's so many machinations here that are so interconnected. And while we look at people like the Representative Brian Harrison, who used to work in the Trump administration, then he went into Texas politics, where he's from, and he's at District 10 in the Texas House. He's doing serious heavy lifting here, trying to get everybody aware of all of the law breaking. And I think we have A.G. Paxton, who, of course, is running for the Senate seat of Cornyn to try to get John Cornyn out of there, the total rhino. But he is doing a legal motion to declare that the Democrats in the state Congress seats should be vacated, that they should be fired for dereliction of duty, for fleeing their what they were supposed to do there to vote on of course, the redistricting votes, where in Texas, I believe they have 88 Republicans. Like they're completely, they rule the Congress, and the Democrats are obstructing the votes to the redistrict. And so it's all very interesting, very exciting. And so I want to mention a couple other huge wins, which is in HHS. We have RFK Jr. coming out, and this is huge. We saw, while, last week and all of it, we had, of course, the thimerosal, the mercury, being banned, not just from the flu vaccines, but then making it broader to say the other vaccines with thimerosal are going to have to be remanufactured to take the mercury out, and that's huge. And on this channel, no vaccines. Okay, your body, we all got them as kids. This, that, whatever. Vaccines are not what I believe in at all whatsoever. But getting the toxic mercury out is awesome and fantastic. But now we have here with Bhattacharya, where they're taking the funding out, of course, finally. How did that even still going on? The Wuhan labs, okay, Chinese funding out of the HHS. Well, RFK Jr. comes out and says that mRNA shots prolong, in my words here, the biowarfare variants because they amplify, okay, what happens in the body to do with the variants rather than fight the COVID or whatever the hell. Basically, he's canceled 22 mRNA contracts connected with these boosters, etc., that basically shutting down massive amounts of COVID mRNA injections being canceled. It's not a ban on mRNA, even though we wish it would be so much. But basically, that everything going through BARDA is being stopped. We know that they've been already defunding BARDA. This is the massively funded by Bill Gates, etc., across all the African countries. Speaking of Ghana, speaking of what is it with Ghana, right? Isn't Ghana where Karen Bass was? Wasn't she in Ghana? I believe she was in Ghana during the Palisades fire, right? And then they had a huge fire in Ghana right after that, in like the most, fancy area of Ghana where they had all these resorts and things. It was Ghana, wasn't it? Sorry, I wasn't even in my head tonight, but I just want to put that out there. I think Karen Bass was also in Ghana. This thing with Ghana. Pretty sure it was Ghana. Was it Uganda? I'm pretty sure it was Ghana. I'll have to look it up. I'll link it below if I'm wrong. Okay, so anyway, 225 million to these BARDA contracts canceled out of HHS to do with mRNA shots. Okay, 22 contracts, but 500 million altogether in mRNA funding. And this is huge, not only for the global export of the shots, but for the people in the United States who got the boosters and are hearing this news that RFK Jr. literally says that these actually amplify the symptoms. They amplify the problems in the body, the cytokine response, the inflammatory response, all of it, the spike protein, how it causes all of the ongoing problems coming out. And you know, we can all be like, oh, it's, you know, it's years late and whatever. No, this is how it works. You know, this is how it works. It works because RFK Jr. has been in there for 6 months and now has accomplished this, and this is fantastic. And so for people who took all those boosters, we hope it's going to cause a massive amounts of lawfare. I'll have to, you know, I'm excited to see what Naomi Wolf and others are going to be talking about to do with this, because this is massive and amazing. And so I'm really excited to see. And we're also seeing the FBI going and interviewing for future investigation into the DOJ, prosecute the COVID biowarfare and the COVID biowar. Let's just call it the biowar. Okay, the genocide biowar is the FBI is now, of course, gathering intel and information and interviewing all, you know, especially the top people that were censored, fired, debanked, and harassed and had their lives destroyed. The doctors, especially, who were censored and deplatformed, are being investigated by the FBI to get their testimonies and to gather all the evidence for something that is coming here in this prosecution towards the biowarfare of the COVID genocide. And so, all very interesting, all very exciting. And so, I want to switch here over to, you know, kind of as we look at the swamp, what I was saying, you know, the waterfront video, it's kind of just a giant view of the swamp. And I want to talk about so many things that have gone on, right? I just talked about the Soros, you know, funding Mamdani, the Muslim communist who is, you know, tons of money going to the mosques, and, you know, Alexander Soros, the massive Jewish Nazi stealer of, you know, of the Jews' property with his father, and this crazy it's, I wish it was crazy, but no, this planned long game, long con, to take over the Western civilization Christian world, okay, with this this ridiculous thing of this Jewish Muslim fight, okay, and how it goes from there to here, and as we see Mamdani being funded by Alexander Soros and all of the Muslim incursion into the United States funded by them. And then we see here in New York, Governor Hochul, okay, Governor Hochul, this is amazing. She's just announced that she's going to dole out $183 million, $183 million, okay, a ton of money, to the Jews of New York, to Holocaust survivor relatives, okay, their descendants, to receive payments for stolen property from World War II. And you're just like, seriously, you know, really now? It's like, you know, we're 80 years on, $183 million. And what's interesting here is that it just gets back into the same old stuff, okay? You know, Hillary Clinton being subpoenaed to talk about the Epstein stuff. Okay, Ehud Barak, okay, with Bill Clinton, both captured with their 30 plus trips, you know, each of them to Epstein Island, and how in Israel they had Israel working with, and I've talked about this in past videos, but, you know, working with, uh, you know, trying to create with the PLO you know, a Palestinian state, okay, a two-state solution, and how it, before it was Epstein, it was Maxwell, how they controlled that, but through Epstein, of course, with Ehud Barak and Bill Clinton, they stopped there being a two-state solution by the bribery, okay, and you know, this is what we're dealing with. This is what we're dealing with. So we look at this, okay, with Hochul going to pay out $183 million to Holocaust survivor descendants. And this goes right up into the Bronfmans. Okay, Claire Bronfman out of NXVIM. Okay, we're just reaching back here through the years. She just got out of jail. like 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago. Okay, Claire Bronfman. She was like the head pin of the funding of NXIVIM with Keith Raniere and the cult of the anorexic women branded with NXIVIM stuff and this weird cult of the New York crazy elite women. And it was this sex cult, and they got branded, and they were just funding this Ponzi scheme of come to these, these ways that we, brainwash you to keep paying us, basically, how you can be a better human by being a slave and servant to this guy, Keith Raniere. You're just like, dude, really? Like, why? Why do people keep getting into this? But it's so sad. But it's because they don't have God. They don't have God. And so they could like believe in somebody like Keith Raniere, who's like a total failure at everything. And Claire Bronfman gets out of prison, and she is still paying Keith Raniere's lawyer bills, still trying to get Keith Raniere out of prison there, out of out of New York. And Rikers, I believe he's in like heavy duty, bad situation. He's not like Ghislaine Maxwell and now in Club Fed. She got moved to even the fancier. It's beyond Mount Holyoke now. It's like I don't know. Now it's I don't know, just a great spa that she's going to. But Claire Bronfman, she's still paying Raniere's bills, but her dad was super close friends with HRC, with Hillary Clinton. And he was, of course, he was the head of the American Jewish Congress. And they did a whole scam for entertainment purposes only. HRC, and because, she was running for Senate. That's when our, JFK Jr. died in the plane accident. Good friends with Donald Trump. And she, is in the Senate. She's super besties with Bronfman Sr., just like she was besties with Fatou Galan, right, out there in Texas with all the schools, okay, putting the Muslims into Texas and then in Pennsylvania. But she's besties with Bronfman, head Jew. He was the head Jew of Schumer. He was above Schumer. And they go way back, okay, to the Rodhams and the Bronfmans during way back to the early days of way back to prohibition, okay, of alcohol, and it was all like Chicago mobsters and the Jewish mafia, and the Rodhams were up in there bigly, and this is where all these people come from. But anyway, Claire Bronfman is the daughter of that man, and she is the one still working at this. And now, as she's out of prison, she had her own island as well. Remember, there was Epstein's, there's Biden's island, there's the other creepy guy right next to Biden's island there. But I believe that Bronfman's island was more in the Southeast Pacific, and it was really this was connected with Hillary as well, because it was the takeover of Libya, the killing of Gaddafi, and you had her sister, Claire's sister, what is her name? Sarah, I believe Sarah Bronfman, married to a Libyan man who, through social media and color revolution funded by Soros, they tried to take over Libya to get him in as president, a Jewish funded Muslim Libyan, to run Libya. And now there's just open slave trade in Libya. It's just a giant shit show. This was, of course, for the huge mass migration invasion into Europe, which they were able to do anyway, even though they didn't get Sarah Bronfman's husband in as the president. Okay, with the Soros money funding the social media campaign, the color revolution through USAID. So I know I'm going off on one, but this is where we're at, as Hochul is now giving $183 million to bribe the Jews of New York, okay, to, who knows, I think she might go for a presidential run in 28. I'm pretty sure she's going to go. It's like crazy town. And Cuomo, nipple rings Cuomo with his NXIVIM, slave dungeon sex play thing that he's into. Who kills, granny biowar genocide, right? Cuomo. And so all these people just coming out of the woodwork. And they're not. I mean, they think they're on top of the woodwork. They think they're the fine china on top of the woodwork. But everybody else in the country is like, we see you clear as you're like saran wrap. You're completely transparent. We see right through you. But they keep working in this way. They keep doing these things, and they just keep it coming. They just keep it coming. But don't think, okay, that just because Mike Johnson says we're never going to say West Bank again, okay, while he does the same exact thing as the Senate, we're going to keep the Congress kind of in pro forma state. We're going to keep the Senate in pro forma. We're going to keep blocking Trump, okay, from getting his appointees in. We should all be hitting up JD Vance. We should all be protesting in front of the Federal Reserve. We should be protesting our Senate, our local senators. We should be hitting them up constantly, 202-224-3121 for the national lines. But we should be saying, get the heck back in or vacate Congress. You either recess or you get back in, because Mike Lee had the whole plan. Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, constitutional lawyer, had the whole plan. Either get out of Congress and get out of Senate and let President Trump bring in his recession appointments that get everybody in there for a year to actually get everything done. But no, we have a McConnellite Thune, and we have totally owned by AIPAC Mike Johnson with his, we're banning the term West Bank, and now it's only Judea and Samaria as Christians across the land that is occupied by an Israeli government is killing them. Okay, not to mention the mass Gazan genocide. So that is kind of where I'm going to leave it today. There's so much more I could talk about. We have the whole, speaking of, you know, our Messiah, Jesus Christ. All of these other Abrahamic religions, they haven't found their Messiah yet. The golden rule, getting rid of all the other rules and the economy of sin, the pay for play of spiritual forgiveness through just give me some money, right? That's why we love Jesus Christ. Okay, getting rid of that. No, it all comes down to your incredible telic center and knowing what is right and wrong. It's Marcus Aurelius, one of the most, I guess, famous Stoics, put out there. Don't keep studying how to be a good man. Just be a good man. It's simple, because we have inside of us this God spark that shows us the good, what is good and what is evil. Anything too complex isn't necessary. There's a simple truth to everything. And as we keep breaking this down, we know they're coming in next with some kind of alien messiah thing, right? It's whether it's World Economic Forum or Yuval Harari or whoever. There's this guy over in Harvard too, another um, Jewish professor. He's Avi Lieb, Loeb. So Loeb, some people call him Avi Lieb, like Leibowitz, or all of them. Okay, Avi Lieb says, no, we need an alien messiah. They're coming from outer space. And we have this other, and I'll just end it here, and we'll get more into this tomorrow. But, there's this new thing they're putting out in the fake UFO news out there with their CIA people that came out of many dubious places. But basically, this thing called 3I Atlas, they're saying it's the size of Manhattan, and it's coming close to Earth's orbit, or our galactic orbit. And it's going to be coming at any time. It's the size of Manhattan, but it just wants to interact with us. And there could be this incredible ET Messiah coming, right? It's an alien probe, yikes, that's heading for Earth. Okay, and this is as it's also announced that Trump is going to be doing some Golden Dome, or he's announcing that 2028, probably November, before the election, there's going to be the first of the Golden Dome tests, right? And we have Sean Duffy, who is the head of transportation, who has put, part-time, he's put in this interim position as the head of NASA, just because, he's head of the highways and the skies here. temporarily head of NASA, and he's saying by 2030 we're going to have a nuclear reactor, a nuclear, power plant on the, of course, the dark side of the moon, right? Think Ad Astra, think, the wars on the dark side of the moon, right? The Moon Mars, mission situation. Um, Still, we keep hearing nothing's happening there. Those Artemis women, those first astronauts on the moon, just still aren't there, supposedly. But meanwhile, we know, for anybody who's been studying secret space technology, whatever, that the moon is quite active. Okay. And now Sean Duffy's saying we're going to have a nuclear reactor up there because we need to power our, our moon Mars mission. It's just what has to happen. So, but in the meantime, we've got this major three-eye atlas, just happens to be very close to, the Two Eyes Stone, the Atlantis destructor. But Three Eye Atlas is supposedly heading our way, and it's the size of Manhattan. It's just so funny because what's also the size of Manhattan is the AI database that they're building in Tennessee, like this massive, massive AI database that's like the size of Manhattan. So maybe they're going to get married, right? The two of them are going to interconnect and do whatever they're going to do, birth a messiah, birth an AI messiah, I guess, for the transhumanist Abrahamics, okay, that don't know about the new covenant. So we're just going to leave it there, I guess. There's so much more to say, but I'm at 51 minutes, and I didn't expect to go this long. But that's a little waterfront swamp news for you today. Hopefully I'll be back tomorrow. It's so glad to be, I'm just so glad to be back with you, and I'm so glad to be back on the channel. Thanks so much for watching. I will just say, check out the description below. We're going to check out maybe a way for people to be able to check out C60 Evo and give it a go with just a sort of fundraiser for the channel that we're going to do. So check out the description below. And remember that my sponsor, c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off. And you get 15% off if you donate to the channel with another link and another code sent to you, etc. But check out the description for other deals. And I also just want to say thanks again to Nancy and Julie. Congratulations on winning the C60 Evo this month. And I also just want to say, if you found something in this video that is worth supporting, added information, whatever, please support the channel. There's ways to do so below. Keep us going. I'm so glad to be back with you today, and hopefully I'll be back tomorrow, and we're just going to keep on covering the swamp front. Okay, you are free. You are free. Remember that. Telic Center, total God connected. That's all you need to know. Just keep paying attention, okay, to what God is telling you. Everything else is simple. So stay there. You are free. I'll see you soon.